My father didn't raise his voice often. He didn't need to. He had a way of cutting through a room with a sentence so clean it left no blood on the floor, just silence. That morning in courtroom 11C, he sat across from me, immaculate in a navy wool suit that seemed to absorb the light. His tie was knotted with a practiced, silver-haired ease that signaled discipline, not age. Then he looked at the court reporter and let the hammer fall. "She never served," he said. Every word was sharpened by a precision close to contempt. "She stole our name. Every bit of it is a lie." The sound didn't echo, it landed. 100 heads turned at once, a ripple of eyes and pens pausing mid-note. It was a visceral erasure, a public execution of my history. Someone in the back let out a quiet breath, the sound of a spectator finally getting the blood they'd paid to see. I sat alone at the defense table. On their side, the sterling machinery. My mother, Catherine, draped in pearls and a neutral, untouchable expression. Their attorney, a man with coastal polish and the easy confidence of someone who believes the story he's telling is already truth. On my side, nothing, no stack of binders, no legal team, just a charcoal coat, my hair pulled back tight, and my hands folded in my lap to kill the small, involuntary tremor living beneath my skin. The room was freezing in that institutional way, as if warmth had been deliberately engineered out of it. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a thin electric buzz that never quite disappeared. The air smelled of lemon polish and paper that had been handled too many times. I didn't flinch, I didn't speak, I just watched the bench. Judge Genevieve Cross had been quiet all morning. She was contained, like someone holding a door shut against a storm no one else could hear. But then, her gaze settled on me. It lasted a fraction of a second longer than necessary. It wasn't the look of a judge scanning a defendant for a crack. It was recognition. It was a detail out of place. And in that moment, the debt of justice began to pulse. The air in courtroom 11C is a sterile lie. It's engineered to a precise 68 degrees, filtered of anything organic, and replaced with a cloying, industrial mask of lemon-scented floor wax and the ghosts of old paper. It's a room designed for the clean resolution of messier lives, a place where reality is expected to be flat, documented, and bound in leather. I sit at the defense table. My back is a rigid line of conditioned steel. My hands are folded in my lap, fingers interlaced with a stillness that feels like stone, though beneath the surface, the muscles are vibrating. It's a frequency only a soldier would recognize, the hum of a machine waiting for the green light. Across the mahogany divide sits Julian Sterling, my father. He is the architect of this sterile world. He looks immaculate in a navy wool suit that seems to absorb the fluorescent light rather than reflect it. His silver hair is combed back with a discipline that suggests he has never known a moment of chaos he couldn't litigate out of existence. Julian doesn't look at me. He's spent the last hour meticulously dismantling the person I became in the years I was gone. My daughter Alia was always a seeker of attention, he tells the room. His voice is a smooth, low-frequency hum. He doesn't need to shout to destroy. When she left our home, she didn't join the service. She joined a delusion. She invented a life of sacrifice because she couldn't handle the reality of her own failures. Every bit of her story is a fabrication, a theft of valor that mocks every man and woman who truly wore the uniform. The debt of justice settles over me like a heavy shroud. To the reporters and the spectators, Julian's words are a polished truth. He is the pillar. I am the drifter in a charcoal blazer who cannot produce a single piece of paper to prove I existed in the dust. My silence isn't an admission, it's a tactical retreat. I learned long ago that in a kill zone, movement is a target. I am staying small, breathing through my nose, and waiting for the enemy to overextend. Julian thinks my stillness is a crack in the armor. He's wrong. It is the armor. The prosecution moves to the digital evidence. A large monitor flickers to life, displaying a search of the Department of Defense's public portal. The cursor blinks with a rhythmic, mechanical indifference. The name entered, Alia West. The social security number is mine. Search results, 0, the attorney announces. The word echoes with a hollow finality. No enlistment record, no active duty history, no discharge papers. Alia West, according to the United States government, has never served a single day in the armed forces. The room turns cold. I can hear the scratching of pens, the whispered indictments from the gallery. They see a phantom, a fraud. But as the digital nothing stares back at me, the hum of the courtroom lights shifts. The frequency changes. It begins to sync with the pounding of my heart, a rhythmic pulse that takes me back to the dead space outside Kandahar. Suddenly, the lemon wax is gone. The air is thick with the cloying, metallic scent of burnt magnesium and diesel smoke. I can feel the phantom weight of my M5 medical bag pulling at my shoulder. 35 pounds of life-saving gear I'd give anything to have right now. I am 23 years old, my head shaved to the scalp, my skin crusted with a layer of fine gray silt that never really leaves your pores. I am kneeling in the wreckage of a Humvee that's been peeled open like a tin can. The heat is a physical weight, a shimmering curtain that makes the horizon dance. I'm not a defendant, I'm a medic. I remember the woman I was dragging through that pulverized landscape. Her face was a mask of grit and terror, her uniform torn to reveal a catastrophic bleed in her shoulder. She wasn't a judge then. She was a Priority 1 casualty, slipping through my hands as the blood made everything slick. The sand was stinging my eyes, clogging my throat. I leaned over her, my breath hot against her ear, and whispered the only anchor I had. I didn't tell her it would be okay. I told her the serial number of the hemostat I was clicking into place to clamp her brachial artery. 7904, I hissed into the smoke. Focus on the numbers. 7904, keep that number in your head and you stay in this world. A gavel hit the wood. The sound snapped me back to the present. Miss West. It was Judge Genevieve Cross. She'd been quiet all morning, contained like a storm behind a closed door. Now she was leaning forward. Yes, Your Honor, I said. My voice was steady, minimal, tactical. She wasn't looking at the 0 search results on the screen. She wasn't looking at Julian's smug legal team. She was staring at my right hand. I looked down. My fingers were twitching in a rhythmic, mechanical locking motion, the muscle memory of a medic securing a hemostat. I forced them still, but the connection was made. Judge Cross's eyes stayed on mine for a fraction of a second too long. There was no judgment in them. There was a detail out of place, a memory pressing against the present. The spring is compressed to its limit. My father thinks he's erased me, but I've spent my life stabilized by numbers he'll never understand. I held the judge's gaze and waited. The truth doesn't ask permission, it just arrives. The second morning of the trial starts with the sound of a closing door. It's a heavy, expensive thud that echoes through the wood-paneled vacuum of the courtroom. Julian Sterling doesn't do things halfway. If he is to win, he must not only prove me wrong, he must make it as though the version of me he dislikes never existed at all. He is performing a digital lobotomy in front of a live audience. We must look at the psychological profile of the defendant. Vance Thorne, Julian's lead counsel, says as he paces the well. He has the predatory confidence of a man who's never lost a fight because he picks the ones he can rig. We have obtained records from Alia's formative years, records that suggest a deep-seated need for reinvention, a history of what her own mother calls elaborate fantasies. I look toward the first row of the gallery. My mother, Catherine Sterling, sits there like a porcelain statue. She's draped in silk and pearls, her face a mask of practiced neutrality. She was the one who packed my duffel bag when I was 18. Her hands were shaking as she handed me a stack of cash I never used. She saw the shaved head. She saw the fire in my eyes. Now she won't even meet my gaze. She's provided the evidence. Old journals, school reports, things stripped of their context and weaponized. They want to frame me as a girl playing dress-up to escape the Sterling standards. I maintain the silence. It's my strongest position. Inside, I'm digging. I know the military database. I know the bureaucracy. A search that returns 0 for a valid social security number doesn't mean the person doesn't exist. It means the file is flagged. It's a red flag protocol. It means my history isn't lost. It's been locked behind a level 4 clearance, a tier reserved for black site operations and assets the government prefers to keep in the shadows. My father has spent decades cultivating favors in the State Department. He didn't just doubt my service. He used his reach to have my unacceptable history suppressed. He's trying to bury me while I'm still breathing. The defendant claims she was part of Operation Iron Suture, Thorne mocks. He spreads his arms, playing to the gallery. A name that appears in no public history books. A unit with no commanding officer, willing to step forward. It is a ghost story, told by a woman who couldn't find her place in the real world. The afternoon session brings the first physical blow. I'm called to the stand for a hearing on my psychological triggers. Thorne plays a video. It's grainy surveillance footage from a grocery store 6 months ago. On the screen, I'm standing in the cereal aisle. A car in the parking lot backfires, a sharp, percussive crack. I don't jump in the video, I don't scream. I execute a perfect tactical drop. My body hits the linoleum before the sound fully registers. My hands cover my head. My eyes scan the perimeter with a terrifying, hollow intensity. Does this look like a hero to you? Thorne asks the courtroom. Or does it look like a woman who is fundamentally broken? A woman who has studied the symptoms of PTSD so thoroughly that she has begun to perform them for an audience. I sit in the witness chair. My heels are locked against the floor. The screen flickers, and for a split second, the grocery store linoleum turns into the pulverized concrete of a triage site. The smell of the courtroom's lemon wax vanishes, replaced by that cloying, metallic scent of burnt metal. My skin feels the phantom heat of a localized blast. My body didn't react to a car. It reacted to a pressure wave it's been conditioned to recognize. Is there a question, counselor? I ask. My voice is flat, dead air. Thorne snorts. I think the video speaks for itself, Miss West. It does, Judge Cross interrupts. Her voice is a cool blade cutting through Thorne's theater. The room goes quiet. She's leaning forward, her fingers interlaced on the bench. She isn't looking at Thorne. She is looking at the way I am sitting, the way I'm subconsciously tracking the exits without moving my head. Mr. Thorne, the judge says, you call it a performance. But tell me, why does the defendant's heart rate, as monitored by the courtroom's biometric security bench, spike exactly 3 milliseconds before the audio of the backfire plays on your recording? It's almost as if her body is reacting to the electromagnetic pulse of the video start, a trait commonly found in individuals trained for high-stakes environments. The room holds its breath. Julian's hand tightens on his briefcase. I see his knuckles turn white. The crack in the mirror is widening. The mystery isn't just about my missing files anymore. It's about why the woman in the black robe is starting to fight my war for me. I don't smile, I don't relax, I just stay in the stillness. I am a sergeant first-class medic. I've survived worse ambushes than this. I look at my father, and for the first time since the trial began, I see the flicker of a man who realizes he's standing on shifting sand. The validation gap is still there, but someone is building a bridge from the other side. The silence of the evening recess is more taxing than the noise of the courtroom. I sit in the law library, the only space I'm permitted to occupy while the janitorial staff scrubs the day's residue from the hallway marble. The building is breathing around me, a low, mechanical sigh of ventilation systems and the distant hum of the city. Before me sits a government-issued laptop, its screen a blinding white rectangle that feels like a mockery of my situation. I've tried to access my VA portal 4 times. Each time, the result is a digital wall. Access DNID, Level 4 clearance required. A Level 4 clearance isn't for a sergeant first-class medic. It's for the architects of policy, the handlers of Tier 1 assets, the ghosts who operate in countries the State Department doesn't officially recognize on maps. My heart hammers against my ribs, but it isn't fear. It's a cold, analytical fury. Julian Sterling hadn't just used his influence to hide my service. He'd somehow convinced the system that my history was a threat to national security. I realized then that Operation Iron Suture wasn't just a classified deployment. It was a liability. My father has a contact, someone in the shadows of the administration who owes him a debt large enough to bury a daughter. By locking my file behind a Level 4 wall, they hadn't just made me a phantom. They demade me a criminal if I ever tried to prove I was alive. I dig into the metadata of the no record found screen Julian's legal team presented today. I'm not a hacker, but I know how to read the language of the bureaucracy. I find the access log. The file was red-flagged exactly 48 hours after I sent my first letter home from the field 6 years ago. Julian hadn't waited for me to come home to erase me. D started the process the moment he realized I was actually going to survive the war. I look at the grainy reflection of myself in the darkened laptop screen. My hair is longer now, the charcoal blazer hiding the jagged line of a shrapnel scar on my thigh, but the eyes are the same. I am a gray folder to the world, a secret kept in a lead-line box. I shut the laptop. The click echoes like a safety being switched off in the empty library. Julian wanted a ghost. He's about to find out that ghosts are the only ones who can walk through walls. The transition back to the courtroom the next morning is a jolt to the system. The institutional coldness is back, pressing against my skin. My father is already there, looking like he's carved from ice. He doesn't look at the laptop bag I carry. The prosecution starts early. They're pushing the narrative of my instability again, trying to link it to my supposed fabrication of trauma. Every time Julian's lawyer, Thorne, speaks, I can taste the copper in my mouth. It's the metallic tang of burnt metal and blood, the sensory ghost of the extraction site. Thorne is showing a series of financial discrepancies. Housing credits I received that he claims were obtained through identity theft. He's building a cage of numbers around me. I keep my hands flat on the table. I don't speak. I don't interrupt. I watch Judge Cross. She's different today. She's not looking at the binders of evidence. She's looking at me with a terrifying, absolute clarity. She's waiting for me to break the silence. But I'm a medic. I know how to wait for the stabilization window. During a sidebar, I catch my mother's eye. She looks away, her hand trembling as she adjusts a pearl earring. The validation gap is a physical weight in the room, a pressure that's coiling the spring tighter and tighter. Julian leans over to his lawyer and whispers something, a small, satisfied smirk touching the corner of his mouth. He thinks he's won. He thinks the gray folder is a tomb. He doesn't realize that in my world, the most dangerous things are the ones you can't see on a screen. I look up at the clock. The seconds are ticking toward the moment the spring snaps. I'm not a daughter defending her name anymore. I'm a soldier identifying a target. I adjust my blazer, feeling the phantom weight of my kit. The silence is about to end, but not in the way Julian Sterling expects. The third day of the trial feels like a funeral for a woman who refuses to die. The institutional cold of the courtroom has seeped into my bones. I sit at the defense table, my posture a barricade. Across the aisle, Vance Thorne stands in the center of the well. He spreads his arms wide, a conductor orchestrating a symphony of doubt. He wears a suit that costs more than my last 3 years of civilian life, but his eyes are cheap, narrowed and hungry for the kill. Silence, Thorne says. He lets the word hang in the lemon-polished air. Silence is the refuge of the fraud. We have asked for names. We have asked for a chain of command. We have asked for a single verifiable heartbeat from this supposed service in Kandahar. And what does Alia West give us? Nothing. Not because she is protecting a secret, but because there is no one to name. No one saw her. No one led her, because she was never there. The conflict is a physical pressure. This is the legal gag. My jaw is so tight I can feel the pulse thrumming in my molars. Behind my eyes, the faces of my squad are as vivid as the men sitting in the gallery. I see Miller's lopsided grin. I see Jackson's steady hands. I see Doc Halloway, who taught me how to pack a wound without looking. I could name the coordinates of the LZ. I could recite the tail number of the bird that pulled us out of the smoke. But if I speak those names into a public record, I am handing my father the rope he needs to hang me for treason. He knows I won't break my oath. He is banking on my honor being my undoing. Thorne leans over the defense table. His breath is a mix of expensive coffee and peppermint. Last chance, Alia. Give the court a name. Give us one person who can verify you were in the sand on the night of August 14th. I taste copper. The sensory jolt is sudden. The fluorescent hum of the courtroom overhead modulates into the electric buzz of a dying radio. The smell of the lemon wax vanishes, replaced by the cloying, metallic stench of burnt metal and scorched earth. I remember the heat of the fire licking at the wreckage of the liaison's Humvee. I remember the sound of the world ending in a percussive blast of concrete and steel. I look at the bench. Judge Genevieve Cross is leaning back, her fingers laced together. She is watching the validation gap widen until it threatens to swallow the entire room. She hasn't moved for 10 minutes. She looks like a statue carved from a trauma she's trying to keep buried. Thorne scoffs at my silence. Nothing, just as we thought. Your Honor, the prosecution moves for a summary judgment. This charade has gone on long enough. I cannot give you a name, Mr. Thorne. My voice is a low, resonant tone that cuts through his theater. But I can give you a sequence. A sequence. We aren't here for a math lesson, Miss West. We're here for the truth. A triage sequence, I continue. I don't raise my voice, I don't need to. On the night of August 14th, 3 casualties were brought into the stabilization point after the primary IED strike. Priority 1. I stop, I let the silence do the work. I watch the judge. Priority 3, I say, my voice softening just enough to make them lean in. A female liaison officer. I used a hemostat, serial number 7904. The room tilts. Thorne looks confused, scanning his binders for a rebuttal to a language he was never meant to understand. But Judge Cross, her hand goes to her right shoulder. It's a subconscious, lightning-fast movement. Her fingers curl against the black fabric of her robe, right where the shrapnel would have bitten in. The court will take a 15-minute recess, she says. Her voice is strained, breathless. She stands and exits the bench with a slight, protective hitch in her right arm, a ghost of a phantom pain. I sit back. My father is staring at me from across the aisle, his immaculate mask finally showing a hairline fracture of doubt. The gag is still on my mouth, but I've just whispered a secret into the ear of the only person who can hear it. The spring is vibrating, the release is coming. The digital battlefield of the fourth morning is more treacherous than any mountain pass I navigated in the Hindu Kush. Julian Sterling has stopped trying to simply erase my past. Now, he is actively rewriting it. I sit at the defense table, watching the validation gap fill with a manufactured history. It is a narrative designed to make me the villain of my own life. We have uncovered new digital correspondence, Vance Thorne announces. His voice rings with a feigned sense of tragedy that makes my skin crawl. Emails from an encrypted account used by the defendant. Necessary fiction. The mystery of my own life is being projected on a 60-inch monitor. I watch the screen. The headers look legitimate. The tone is chillingly close to my own, blunt, sparse, weary. It is a frame job of surgical precision. Julian didn't just hire lawyers. He hired digital mummers to play my ghost. I lean over my meager stack of papers. My pulse is a steady, tactical beat in my neck. I don't panic. I analyze the evidence like an investigator. I notice a pattern in the timestamps. Every email was sent at 03:00 a.m. on the second Tuesday of the month. I know that rhythm. It's the exact time the Sterling Estate's automated server performs its maintenance backups. He is using his own house's infrastructure to bury me, convinced I am too unstable to notice the wires behind the curtain. Thorne doesn't ask about the war when I am called back to the stand for cross-examination. He asks about the money. How does it feel, Alia, to take bread from the mouths of men who actually bled in the dust? The sensory jolt hits me. The institutional cold of the room vanishes. The fluorescent hum overhead modulates into the electric buzz of a dying generator. The smell of the lemon wax is gone, replaced by the cloying, metallic stench of burnt metal and scorched earth. I can taste the copper of old blood in the back of my throat. I don't defend my character, I don't cry. I look past Thorne, straight at my father. The emails are deepfakes, Julian, I say. My voice is flat, dropping into the command tone of the triage tent. You recorded my voice during our last Thanksgiving argument and used an AI synthesis engine to ghostwrite those admissions. But you made a mistake. Julian's eyes, those cold, silver eyes flicker. You forgot that the Sterling Library has a unique acoustic resonance. A 3-millisecond hollow delay caused by the mahogany paneling. You didn't find a confession, you manufactured one. The gallery erupts. The spring is no longer just vibrating, it is groaning under the weight of the truth. Julian doesn't move, but the mask of the immaculate patriarch has developed a hairline fracture. I look at the bench. Judge Cross is sitting perfectly still. Her hand is resting on the wood, her fingers curled tight. She isn't watching the lawyers. She is watching the way I sit, the way I refuse to yield an inch of ground. The ghost is no longer just haunting this room. I am dismantling the architecture of his lies, brick by mahogany brick. The silence I kept for days is transforming. It is becoming a weapon. And Julian Sterling finally looks like a man who realizes he is standing in the middle of a minefield he forgot he mapped. The escalation of the fifth day moves from my records to my mind. Julian isn't content with calling me a liar anymore. He wants me declared incompetent. He wants me locked away in a room where my memories can be managed by men in white coats. He brings in Dr. Eris Thorne. The man is a behavioral expert with an expensive watch and a clinical detachment that is as sharp and cold as a scalpel. He sits in the witness chair like he's perched on a throne, looking down at me with a pity that feels like an insult. What we are witnessing in Alia West, rehearsed tics of a woman who needs to be the hero of a tragedy that never happened. I sit in the witness chair, my heels are locked against the floor, I don't move, I don't protest. I listen to him, describe me like a specimen under glass. Then the prosecution plays the video. It's grainy security footage from a park near my apartment, a summer evening, families on blankets. In the distance, a firework goes off, a sharp, percussive crack. On the screen, I don't just jump, I drop. I am in the dirt in a split second, my hands over my head, my eyes scanning the sky for a threat that isn't there. Is this the extraordinary heroism we were promised? Vance Thorne asks, his voice dripping with venom. Or is this a woman who belongs in a padded room for her own safety? The weight of the injustice feels like a physical pressure, a compressed spring coiled so tightly, it threatens to snap my spine. I feel the sweat pooling at the base of my neck. Suddenly, the courtroom air vanishes. The smell of the lemon wax is gone, replaced by the cloying, metallic stench of burnt metal and scorched earth. I taste copper, I'm back in the dead space. I'm not in a park, I'm in a triage zone, and the sound of that firework wasn't a celebration. It was a mortar ranging in on our position. My body remembers what my father wants the world to believe I made up. I wait for the room to quiet. I wait until the only sound is the hum of the electric lights. Then, I look at Dr. Thorne. You call it a performance, doctor, I say. My voice is steady enough to hold a suture. But you're looking at the wrong data. In that video, when the firework goes off, look at my feet. I didn't just drop, I pivoted toward the sound. My body calculated the decibel-to-distance ratio. I didn't take cover because I was scared. I took cover because my autonomic nervous system is trained. I pause, I let the silence settle like ash. Tell me, doctor, in your expert opinion, why are you the one sweating in a room set to 68 degrees? I point to the dark patches under his arms. The doctor stammers. He adjusts his glasses, his clinical mask slipping. He looks at Julian, but Julian is looking at the floor. The gallery is dead silent. I realize then that Julian is terrified. He isn't trying to win a civil suit anymore. He is trying to silence me before the gray folders can be reached. The validation gap is closing, and as I look at the bench, I see Judge Cross leaning forward. Her gaze is fixed on me with a terrifying, absolute clarity. The spring is about to release, and when it does, it's going to take the whole room with it. The air in the hallway outside courtroom 11C was different from the treated oxygen inside. It was heavy, stagnant, and carried the faint metallic scent of old plumbing, like an extraction zone. I was leaning against the cold marble wall, trying to find my center, when the heavy oak doors swung open. Julian Sterling stepped out. He didn't walk, he glided. The space around him seemed to bend to his proximity, a vacuum of power and expensive wool. He stopped inches from me. His presence was an atmospheric pressure that tried to force the air from my lungs. Drop this, Alia, he hissed. His voice was no longer the smooth cello of the courtroom. It was a serrated blade. Emergency order, black sight before the sun sets. The escalation hit me like a physical blow. This was the ultimate compression of the spring. He was willing to have his own daughter imprisoned rather than lose control of the narrative. You're shaking, Alia, he noted. His eyes tracked the small, involuntary tremor in my left hand. That's the sound of your heroism failing you. I looked at the tremor, then I looked at him. Inside, I was calculating, he was bluffing, he feared the gray folders. The smell of the hallway shifted again, copper became burnt metal. Hum became dying radio. The memory didn't break me, it sharpened me. I'm not shaking because I'm scared, Julian, I said. My body remembers what happens to people who stand in the way of a medic and her patient. I pushed past him, my shoulder brushing his navy blazer. The marble of the hallway felt less like a cage and more like a launchpad. I walked back through the oak doors. The bailiff called the room to order. I sat at my empty table, folded my shaking hands, and looked straight at the bench. I had survived the dust. I would survive the Sterling name. The spring was ready. The afternoon session of the 6th day begins in a silence so thick it feels like a physical obstruction. The gallery is packed. The air hums with the static of a crowd, waiting for a kill. Vance Thorne stands at the lectern, holding the emergency order paperwork aloft like a holy relic. He looks at me like a man who has already dug the grave and is just waiting for the body to stop twitching. Your Honor, immediate gag order and closed session summary judgment. The climax is here. I can feel the metal of the spring screaming. It's been compressed for years, held down by my father's money and my mother's shame. I stand up. I don't wait for my turn. I don't wait for permission. The compressed spring snaps. I am an actual operative, I say. My voice cuts through Thorne's rhetoric like a hot wire through silk. Julian surges forward in his seat, but the gavel doesn't fall. Judge Cross stands up. The room goes into collective shock. She steps down from the bench into the well of the court. You asked for a witness, a record that couldn't be forged. The sensory jolt hits me. The room dissolves into battlefield memory. The fluorescent hum becomes a dying radio. Lemon wax becomes scorched earth. She unfastens her robe and lets it fall to the floor. Beneath it, a scar is revealed on her right shoulder. This is that fantasy, Mr. Thorne. A mortar round in a valley 4,000 miles from here. The only reason I am standing here is because a sergeant named Alia West. The room breaks, the validation gap vanishes, Julian collapses emotionally. 7904, I never forgot it. The ghost has a name. The silence is no longer a weapon. I look at the woman I saved and I breathe. The truth is standing in the room. The atmosphere in courtroom 11C shifts into a profound reckoning. Judge Cross's robe lies on the floor like a shed skin. The silence is heavy, with the sound of reputations collapsing at once. The rear doors are thrown open with a heavy rhythmic thud. Two men in dress blues enter with synchronized precision. A courier in a dark suit carries a lead-line briefcase. I am a courier from the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Iron suture. Julian Sterling surges to his feet in panic. This is an outrage, Julian shouts, voice cracking. Judge Cross stops him with absolute authority. The courier places the briefcase on the evidence table. The gray folder is opened, thick classified papers marked top secret. The sensory past of Kandahar floods back like burnt metal and dust. Judge Cross reads citations of valor aloud. The records reveal Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and erased service history. The validation gap is incinerated. Julian looks down, defeated and exposed. The judge orders dismissal and legal consequences. Military police approach the plaintiff's table. Alia West exhales, finally released from years of silence. Julian is escorted out in honest silence. Judge Cross gives a final nod. The gray folder is open. The air in the room feels clean for the first time in 6 years. 3 months later, the world has shrunk to a manageable, beautiful size. The Sterling scandal headlines fade into the background of memory. I am in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina now. The air tastes of damp earth, pine needles, and clean rain silence. I sit on the porch of a small cabin I purchased. The porch wood is rough and honest under my boots. I hold a weathered photograph from a cedar chest. The photo shows me in a triage tent at 400 hours after Kandahar extraction. I look terrifying, exhausted but real. I run my thumb over the edge of the photo. The smell of pine briefly becomes burnt metal and scorched earth memory. On the back, Judge Cross wrote, "The truth doesn't need a robe to be heard." My phone buzzes with a message from my mother. She asks to come see me after reading the files. I realize closure is not apology or confession. True closure is the absence of needing any of it. I set the phone down and choose silence over response. I stand at the edge of the porch, watching the sunset bleed into the valley. My name is Alia West. I am a daughter of nothing and a veteran of a forgotten war. I breathe in the mountain air, deep, slow, unhurried. the silence is finally my own. The weight of a person is not found in institutional records or curated opinions. We live in a world obsessed with the appropriate, flattening human experience into spreadsheets and hierarchy. Truth is found in scars, silence, and choosing soul over polished lies. Every person carries a gray folder of private battles and unseen sacrifices. Erasing another's reality destroys both truth and self-understanding. Identity is a fortress built from the inside out. We are the only true witnesses to our own integrity. Truth is like mountains. It stands without permission and does not move. Peace comes when we no longer need the world to validate our history. We realize only our own voice must honor our name. Thank you for walking through this journey of silence and reclamation. Leave a comment with where you're listening from. There is power in not being alone. If this story touched you, consider following and subscribing for more. We are just getting started.